Hi everyone, Dothany Snooze Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for another edition of 2022 List Week, where I go over the worst and best of the year. In this video, my top 10 worst albums of 2022. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Let's go! You know, this year there were some pretty hugely awful records from artists who we anticipated would come out with hugely awful records, but there were also some upsets and major disappointments from the greats and most influential in the industry. That's why at number 10, we are talking about the one and only Drake Aubrey Graham with his project Honestly Nevermind, which might surprise some people because, hey, aren't there worse albums that dropped this year? Yes, there are. That's why it's at number 10. But this record made the list for a few different reasons. One, its massive disappointment factor, because creatively and aesthetically, production-wise too, someone at Drake's level should be functioning at a way higher caliber of creativity than what we are seeing here on this record. Plus, I mean, what a way to fumble a musical style and a genre with Drake going in a dance music direction on this one, and nowhere did we have a more shining example of the full potential of a mainstream dance record this year than we had in Beyonce's Renaissance. And Honestly Nevermind is no Renaissance, that's for sure, as the beats are bland, mind-numbing, repetitive, soulless, stiff, no flavor, no seasoning. God, they stink. Sometimes they're even badly mixed and mastered too. Much of the time they have little to no memorable hooks, any standout melodies or anything like that. It's just wallpaper, people. What's even worse is on top of these instrumentals, Drake doesn't really seem to be bringing his writing game either. Often he listlessly vocalizes with little to nothing in terms of interesting or catchy or memorable lyrical content. He's just kind of riffing without the ability to actually make it sound compelling in the moment, that is. The auto-tune and effects Drake's vocals are laid out with often make up for the lackluster singing performances, making them at least somewhat slightly listenable, I suppose. But I'm guessing because you're here, you're looking for a little bit more from your listening experiences than what Honestly Nevermind is able to offer. And yeah, I don't think this album offers much. Creatively, this thing is empty. Now, with that being said, increased efforts do not always mean increased results, which is why at number 9 we have Muse's Will of the People. Some of you may remember seeing the title track on my worst singles of the year list, and yeah, the entire record itself is shit too. God, the songs are so obnoxious, the politics are so preachy and annoying and in your face, and often stated in a very vague way that makes it difficult to see where exactly the band sits. Plus, the whole thing instrumentally and philosophically is so pompous and so over the top while not really making any super profound points about much of anything. Like, it's just a lot of flash, it's just a lot of melodrama, but on top of it, we also get some of Muse's most annoying and tackiest songwriting yet. Yeah, this record is just all kinds of awful, and yet another instance of Muse's continued fall from artistic grace. It also doesn't reflect very well on the current state of rock music, too. With number 8, we have a project that originally I put the kids' gloves on a little bit for because I saw potential in this record. I assumed what I heard of this album would not be the only thing that we would hear. Also, given its predecessor, my enjoyment of that album, I thought we kind of had something in progress with this one. But no, I am talking about Kanye West's Donda 2, which, given the current state of Kanye, I think what we have here is pretty much all that we're getting. This is the album. And yeah, it's just an unfinished hunk of crap. Like a few features and instrumental ideas here and there that seem somewhat interesting. But no, for the most part, this is just incomplete slop with some of Kanye's worst lyrics in years, when you even get lyrics, because much of the time he's just kind of just filling the air with random vocalizations that I imagine at one point he intended to fill in later or complete in some form or fashion, but we are not there. What a sad, awful, and tragic way for one of the most influential artists of my generation to go out with the statements and actions and behaviors that he's currently engaging in, on top of this unfinished mess of an album. We will say that and move on to number 7, where we have Ken Carson's X. Now, this record, I think you can swap in any number of projects from Playboi Carti's current run of releases off of his
Opium
record label, but we're going to have the Ken Carson project here as a placeholder, because right now what we have here is an album that is being released in reaction to a demand. Right now, Playboi Carti and his super hype and repetitive, aggressive, rage-filled sound is the hottest thing in hip-hop at the moment, so of course, the audience wants more. And Carti can't seem to drop records fast enough, so what is the answer? Have a record label where you're putting on artists who essentially sound just like you, doing roughly the same thing, maybe with their own slight variations on it. Ken Carson pretty much is that, and I can't possibly imagine a blander, more faceless, more uninteresting take on the aesthetic and style that Carti has brought to the table than this. From the beats that sound like cheap interpretations of something you might hear off of Die Lit, to absolutely dime a dozen vocals and flows that I couldn't pick out of a lineup if I tried, to, I guess, a lack of catchy or even memorable lyrical content. Not that I expected a whole lot of that anyway. Even the lowest bars are not being met. Pretty much everything about Ken Carson's X, in my opinion, is a complete and utter snooze, and that's why it's at number 7. At number 6, a record that meets a lot of the same requirements. That would be the new Nav album, Demons Protected by Angels, which, yeah, it's a Nav album. I feel almost bad for not liking Nav's music at this point, honestly. It's become like a cliche. It's a meme. I don't even know what to do or say about Nav's output at this point that I haven't already said a million times. I mean, look, here's the thing. Nav, clearly, despite all the hatred that he gets across multiple sectors of the music industry, is confident and on some level must really enjoy what he does, because if he didn't, he wouldn't be doing it at this point. He wouldn't be steadily continuing on this path, and damn, somebody's got to be liking his music. He's still out here. I mean, many of the same issues that I've had with all of his records up until this point that made them feel soulless and boring and one note and homogenous. Yeah, much of that carries over onto this new album too, and I mean, look, it's hard to say that the guy is fucking up in a way at this point. Clearly, everything he's doing is intentional. If it was not, I don't think he'd be sticking to it in such a dedicated fashion. So, while yes, an album that I do not enjoy, I do want to say it comes from a man who, in a way, over the years, has most certainly earned my respect. He's not going to let something like an overabundance of criticism stop him from having the babiest, most robotiest voice out there in rap right now. At number 5, we have the new Black Eyed Peas record, Elevation. This is an album that honestly I have been avoiding. I didn't really listen to it until I was readying my year-end lists, and that's because at this point I'm pretty much checked out of whatever the hell the Black Eyed Peas are doing. I'm tired of being disgusted. I'm tired of being disappointed. Like, it's saying something that on average, DJ Khaled puts out better and more quality records than the Black Eyed Peas do, and DJ Khaled doesn't even fucking make music on his own albums. How are will.i.am and company coming out with projects that are more creatively bankrupt than the new DJ Khaled when they're literally responsible for the music on the record? But yeah, that's where we are. And this album is absolutely awful and trash, and quite possibly one of the worst Black Eyed Peas records so far, if not the worst. Because the production is cheap as hell, sounds very thin, sounds very boring. It's giving terrible 2000s era dance pop, but many of the songs also have like Latin crossover elements to them that are employed in the grossest and tackiest way possible. And when that's not making my stomach churn on this record, there's also a fair amount of interpolations, just borrowing perfectly good songs and melodies from other more popular, superior tracks, and just coming out with worse, shittier versions of them on new original productions on this record. There's also even a cut here where lyrically they borrow from those odd freaking DMs that leaked from Adam Levine of Maroon 5 fame. Like, that was a good lyrical idea. We're just going to copy what he's saying in these weird ass messages. That was neither funny or apt in any way. I don't even know where they were coming from with that. It's so weird to think we are currently here where Black Eyed Peas are essentially a joke band, like Gorillaz, if there was nothing good going on. And at one point with their debut, we were actually getting quite good music. Very sad to see the progression of things here. That's all I'll say. With number 4, we have a record that I expected to be a disappointment. Yeah, that is the new Machine Gun Kelly album, Mainstream Sellout. MGK did come out with a slightly, ever so slightly better record than his last record this time around, but that is by such the smidgiest of margins that it's barely an improvement. Because, yeah, this thing is like a really bad, awful, painful pop punk, mainstream rock, hip-hop crossover that I can't stand to ever think about ever again once we cross over to 2023. Thank you. Even with better production and a few tolerable songs this time around, MGK came through with a project that was, yes, also creatively bankrupt, annoying, loaded with vapid lyrics, basic songs, boring vocal performances. You know, it's really sad that this right here is the most popular and relevant artist that pop punk has to offer right now. Because at one point it used to be Green Day, with Dookie, and even deeper into their 2000s era, which I was not super crazy about. Like, even that was preferable to what we are now doing. I'm not usually a terribly nostalgic person or somebody who, advocates for things that happened in the past being better and superior than what's happening like right now in the present, or maybe what's to come into the future. I'm usually a very forward-thinking person, but in the case of pop punk, yes, this is one of the few things that I wish we could truly turn the clock back on, because somewhere we went fucking wrong. And I don't know if there's really any recovery past this point. We're in a sorry state of affairs when it comes to at least the mainstream end of pop punk, and MGK is really kind of making sure that the genre is dead and buried. Falling from relevance after the 2000s wasn't enough. We now have to come back and just piss all over its grave. Thank you for that, MGK. Thank you. Following this at number 3, we have Mr. Kid Rock with Bad Reputation. Kid is having a bit of a renaissance at this point. Not creatively. Yeah, he's got a bit of a popularity resurgence because it just so happens that his silver spoon background combined with his right-wing politics appeals to people who have Punisher stickers on their car. So, like, imagine all of the dumb, stupid, ignorant, far-right, fascist, leaning red pill crap that you read all over the internet, be it on Twitter, Reddit, or some other hellhole, and then combine that with the rootin' tootin' southern alternative rock and metal that Kid Rock helped bring to the mainstream, and that's essentially what you have with Bad Reputation. I guess on top of that, what is also cringe is to hear Mr. Rock on this LP hitting us with this attitude as if like, oh man, I'm telling it like it is. Nobody's willing to say this, what I'm saying on this album, nobody. When, like, literally it is one of the most cliche, generic, and uninteresting and uninformed perspectives that you could be parroting. This album is also massive as well, like way too fucking big, way too many goddamn tracks on this thing. It covers a lot of weird stylistic bases. In the moments where Kid Rock is trying something kind of new, it sounds like utter shit. Maybe he should have just, stuck to the same riffs that we hear on every album and, just that one rap flow. What happened to the Kid Rock who wanted to paint the sheriff's town red and paint his wife white? Where's that guy? Because this Kid Rock over here is back in the blue and licking boots, and I don't like it. One of the worst albums of the year. I can say with a hand on my heart. I can also say that for the album at our number 2 spot, which has a lot of the same elements of the album in the number 3 spot, but now it's like 2 awful white guys rapping. That would be Tom MacDonald and Adam Calhoun with The Brave. If you've spent any time on the internet, and specifically on some of my videos from the Fantano channel where I have clowned this man to the point where it's kind of gotten tiresome to do so because there's not really much you can say about Tom MacDonald's output at this point. He's pretty much just reiterating the same bullshit talking points again and again and again in song after song after song, where he just pretty much sounds like a dollar store Eminem. But you know what? I had to commemorate the fact that he teamed up with one of the other biggest idiots on the internet, Mr. Adam Calhoun, for a record that is sure to appeal to... Can we put up that picture of like all like the Twitter avatars of guys with like wraparound sunglasses and MAGA hats and stuff, like like with like selfies in their trucks and stuff. This is the core audience for this. This is the audience. Like if you look like that, you're gonna love this record. You're gonna love the shit out of this album. This is gonna be your album of the year.
You know, I don't typically like hip hop music, but this over here.
Do I need to further explain the cringe of this project? Like, obviously the instrumentals are shitty and overly ornate and trying to be epic all the time, as if everything Tom and Adam are saying is so essential and so urgent and so important, because like they're the ones telling it like it is, man. They're the brave. Everybody else is like too chicken to say what they're saying. There's that. There's the rap flows. I mean, Tom MacDonald and especially Adam are not really interesting in terms of like their deliveries, their rhyme choices, their rhyme patterns, and of course the lyrics and messaging on this project are ignorant and stupid and obnoxious and gross in a million fucking ways. Everything on this LP is either a fallacy or a false equivalence or a lie or some kind of super generally vague agreeable point that everybody can get behind to make it look like Tom isn't super radical and he's like in the center and he doesn't really have a bias and oh, he's like saying these things, that must mean there's also merit to these other things. So this album is very carefully crafted in terms of like the specific demo of people that it wants to manipulate. And it looks like Tom is doing that and Adam is doing that. That's their job, that's their bag, that's their vibe. They're professional trolls, and this album is their troll soundtrack. And it sucks, and it's annoying to listen to. Don't listen to it. All right. Number 1. That would be the new Iced Earth album, A Narrative Soundscape. Yes, Iced Earth, the legendary power metal band that came out with some really amazing and classic records back in the day. We haven't talked about them much on the channel, honestly, mostly because power metal isn't really one of my favorite genres, number 1. But number 2, it's been a while since Iced Earth has come out with a record that I think is one of the best in the genre, and it, you know, isn't really all that exciting for me to cover a lot of the band's more recent and more mid stuff. However, I do have to talk about this, which I don't know how much I want to get into this record, because what makes it truly terrible is very cut and dry, because this thing isn't really so much a formal metal album from the band. It's kind of this series of instrumentals that sound like what a huge Lord of the Rings fan would use as their soundtrack if they were like shooting some kind of visual fanfic. And then on top of it, the vocals are just all spoken word bullshit, telling tales of like, the birth of a nation was going down a dark path.
One day, the truth would be told, a light in the sky.
It's just like awful, corny fucking narration after awful fucking corny narration. Like, what an album for the band to come out with after John Schaefer got caught up in that like weird Jan 6th bullshit. Honestly, you know what? It sounds like background music from Diablo 2, and you're talking to an NPC and like, you know, they're telling you like, oh, Kronos did something in the dungeon.
Innocence tainted by pure lunacy, cursed by the slash of a shape-shifting beast. Oh no, this can't be demonic infection, a doomed changeling.
Like, I don't get it. I mean, after so many years of making quality power metal music, the band has just like come out with a bad book on tape with some ideological crap, yes, but then also tracks that serve as passages about like a werewolf, a Dracula. I mean, I guess it lives up to its title as a narrative soundscape. I want to soundly escape from it as it's playing. And honestly, I can't imagine anything else that came out this year that I would want to listen to less. So there you have it. I don't want to talk anymore about these records. Transition, have you given these albums a listen? Did you love them? Did you hate them? What would you rate them? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Never mind. You didn't like these albums. They suck. They're the worst albums of the year. Okay. Yeah, over here next to my head video, check out Fantano 2022, List Week, Forever.